Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Our spooktacular October month continues with a creepy, crawly Les Paul custom. It's been years I've been waiting for the right one of these things to show up. Unfortunately, I've turned down prototypes before, but I was just waiting for one of these Les Paul customs that was birthed in 2015 to show up at the right price. And I got this from the same guy that I purchased the Mummy from, because I just thought, you know, the timing's right, it's Halloween, we might as well do this guitar. Anybody who's watched my show for quite some time knows I appreciate animal-themed guitars, but this time we're taking a dive into the insect world. It appears the Black Widow Les Paul might have wrapped this guitar up, so let's go ahead and free it from its cocoon. So let's see what is in this case that I've been waiting for so long. It is... oh, wow. Let's just say it was worth the wait. This is the Les Paul Centipede. Oh, fudge. Yeah, that really sucks. I literally have never had a broken headstock before, and that's a shame. Like, it was even packed really well too. I don't understand. Yeah, I don't ever want to feel that again. It was right here. I picked it up, felt the back of the neck, and I felt something was wrong. Oh man. Yeah, that was a really scary episode. Well, never mind. I've decided the show must go on. I'm not going to be able to demo this guitar, but I had a nice history lesson. It's not like we have to have a functioning example with us today to get nice shots of it. But man, packed like that, I mean, what hope do guitars that are not as well packed have? Strange how things like this happen. Okay, anyways, broken headstock aside, here is the Gibson Les Paul Centipede. This was a limited edition model in 2015 that kind of took an idea that Gibson was toying around with on signature dealer models and just took it to the mainstream. So as a quick recap, Sam Ash is the retailer that birthed all these things. In 2009, they had an exclusive limited edition of around 25 guitars called the Black Widow. That birthed almost everything Widowed-like. Now, there might have been custom orders before this time, like I've heard of one or two, but it's generally accepted that that is the birth of having a really cool guitar that has colored binding. Those ones had a red binding. They're technically R7s, and they only have the top binding to them. The back isn't bound. But the coolest spec about those is on the back, there's a red stinger, and it has a Black Widowed spider on it. So that birthed animal guitars as well as widowed guitars in that same model. And then later on the next year in 2010, Sam Ash did a Cobra burst, the first time that we would see that finish that was later used many of times. But that had a cool silver stinger on the back with a really vicious looking snake. And it was also built to very similar specs as the Black Widow, meaning it was an R7. And it was around this time that Gibson was starting to toy around with some prototypes of other colors that they could use this whole widowed effect with. And then in 2012, they birthed limited runs of many different colors. Now, I've documented a lot of these on the show, but you've got like the orange, the green, and these other ones on the screen. But what made that first official run of Widows so interesting is it was birthed in 2012. You know, we're in the Rich Light era, so things were still kind of dicey on what they wanted to do, so they gave them rosewood fretboards, which I think works really well for like the green one and maybe even the orange one, but like the purple one is like, yeah, it doesn't look the best unless you get like a really dark colored one, but that's something else that makes those things interesting. So that puts us through 2012. The next batch of animal influenced guitars was 2015, and that was this one, the Centipede burst, And then this one, the Rattler burst. Let's talk the Centipede first, right? So this is one of the more striking guitars if you like weird out there Les Pauls that have a bunch of different colors on them. Because, I mean, look at this. You've got a red Gibson logo with bright yellow binding. Like, when I say bright yellow, it's a dark yellow, but it's still very piercing. But then you get this really cool blue burst fade finish. Like, it's a really dark blue here. Then it transitions into a slightly lighter blue until it's almost, just completely faded out. And on top of that, these are billed as custom Fs this time, which means figured top, flame in this case. And isn't that just a beauty? This is a chunky mahogany body. You've got the gold hardware. Nothing too fancy with our pickups. Just the 490R, 498T series pickups. And you get a regular Nashville style bridge with a tailpiece that's just like normal too. Two-piece top. I mean, nothing too fancy there. It really all just comes down to your fancy finish here, your fancy looking headstock. And then on the back is what I love, is because this is when they're really starting to channel not necessarily the widows within this series, but an animal. And this one is a centipede. There are centipedes out there in the world that are that color. It's got the red antennae with the yellow feet and the blue body. So that's where this color inspiration came from. But as far as the back, they didn't do anything too fancy, but you're going to notice this is a full-on Les Paul custom. It's got the binding. But now let's talk Rattler burst. Now, in my opinion, I don't really like the Rattler burst Les Paul custom all that much, because instead of a beautiful figured maple top, it's got this. It's like a rattlesnake-like exterior. Now, I'm not saying it's an awful guitar. It's kind of cool, but in comparison, I definitely prefer the Centipede over that, because that's more of like a printed design. I haven't seen one in person. I'm not sure if there's a flame top that you can see under that or not, but it's kind of like an orange and black color, great for somebody who likes snakes. And on the back, it's got a black stinger with, once again, kind of a vicious looking cartoonish rattlesnake. But the big thing to know about these two guitars is the fact that they are not dealer exclusive. They made, I think it was somewhere around 100 of each of these, so limited edition, yes. As limited as the other ones, no. I mean, there were a bunch of dealers, and it was the first time that Gibson tried to, do a mass-produced run that they sell at multiple shops. I'm not really sure how these things sold, because as of right now, we have not seen another fully animal-influenced guitar that gets the decal on the back. Now, you can say, hey, 2017, the Rhino Les Paul Axcess. I love that guitar, but sadly, they did not put a cheesy Rhino on the back of the headstock. That is the only thing that guitar was missing from being 100% perfect. I love those things. And then you could also say, Guitar Center's Bats in Flight Les Paul Custom, that's got bats on it. It's not quite the exact same thing because it's not just an animal hidden on the back of the headstock this time. It's all over the fretboard. It's all over the headstock. And then you could also dive into other Halloween guitars like the Big Spider L5. And then I guess you could also make the argument, like the Dove Acoustic in its many, many, many different forms, the Hummingbird, etc., all that stuff. But we're strictly talking Les Pauls that are animal influenced. But brand new, these things were $6,199. Nowadays on the used market, they list for around that, a little bit less. I mean, there's not a huge demand for these, but it's one of those guitars I think that, in the future, it has the potential to appreciate. Now, unfortunately, this one is now down the drain. It'll have a headstock repair and it'll be player's grade. It makes me so upset because, I had a bunch of nice guitar videos I wanted to do today, and this one threw me off for a loop. Why? Why did it have to happen to this guitar? Like, can't it be some other, brand new guitar that I don't care as much about? It just has to be the Centipede that I was waiting forever on and was really excited to review and demo today. Love the look of it straight out of the case. I mean, I guess I can show you the insides of the guitar. I mean, this isn't going to break. It's kind of interesting how it did break. I'll show you that on the workbench. I don't want to mess with this thing too much, but I already took string tension off of it, so it doesn't do any more damage just taking this part off. So we might as well document it the best we can. Maybe Another day, we'll try again. I'm just trying to make the most out of a bad situation here. But it does look like we have some of the original case candy, including a pickguard if you wish to install it. And that's what the COA says, LP Custom F Centipede. Yeah, I guess at least we put insurance on this. But anyways, here's those pickups we were talking about. 490R, 498T, nothing too fancy. That's just what Les Paul Customs have came with ever since the early 90s. But what is interesting is this is just a regular Les Paul Custom. It does not have like a historic long neck tenon. It's not trying to be a reissue of any sort. And it's kind of confusing in Gibson history when the regular Les Paul Customs transitioned into the long neck tenon too. But in the 2010s, you can actually tell the difference between a reissue custom and just a regular custom by looking at that. Another good way that you can tell is by the Nashville style bridge that has the studs in the body. The bridge itself just looks like this. Very nice gold hardware, advanced plating incorporated branding, API. And this is what the tailpiece looks like on an original one. Notice the tooling mark. As far as the pickup readings, 13.43 k ohms in the bridge. Neck pickup should be about half at 7.56. And our middle position for fun, 4.83. And it's just the regular Les Paul stuff here. 2 volumes, 2 tones for each individual pickup. Neck, bridge. It's a real shame this beautiful top will now have a headstock repair. But, you know, maybe in some sort of weird spiritual way, this was destined to happen because somebody who couldn't afford this guitar was meant to have this. So generally what happens when you file a UPS claim, at least with business insurances, they will pay out the claim within a week or two. Then they send this on down to like an auction house that just sells off damaged goods in like an auction, or they just list a price. I'm not really 100% sure. I've only had this happen one other time. It was with my green Pia. It had received like a crack down the neck right here. It wasn't too bad. Like, you didn't have to scrap the guitar, but the buyer didn't want it, and it was a damage in shipping. This one's just full on broken, and that one ended up at a place in Florida. So maybe this is destined for someone else. They'll find it, they'll fix it, and then they'll become famous using it, and now the Centipede Burst will become a holy grail collectible. But man, why did it have to be mine? At least it didn't happen to the Mummy, right? I mean, sure, this is a limited edition guitar. There were around 100 of them made. It stinks, but this thing can be replaced. The Mummy could not be replaced. But again, these did not ship stock with the pickguard. It came in the case. So maple top, despite being a really chunky body though, I'm guessing this probably still has the 9-hole weight relief as the regular Les Paul Customs do. But we've got a mahogany neck with a rich light fretboard. Now obviously I didn't take any time to polish, condition this guitar, make the frets nice and shiny, but we've got 22 medium jumbo frets with this rich light fretboard with real mother of pearl block inlays. Regular 24 3/4 inch scale length. Neck specs of 1.68 inches at the nut, 2.07 by the 12th. First fret neck depth, 0.87 and 0.98 by the 12th. So definitely kind of like a medium C-shaped neck profile there. Here's what the neck profile looks like at the first fret and the 12th fret. And now we move on to that beautiful headstock here. So I took the truss rod cover off because I was curious, did the crack go through to here? It did not, which is good. Headstock breaks can happen multiple ways on Gibsons. Sometimes you get unlucky and it cracks straight through the top and then you have a damaged front of the guitar. This thing, it's gonna repair pretty cleanly. Like, you're not gonna be able to tell it from the front. So future owner, you got lucky on that. Sometimes these truss rod covers will snap in half, but no, nothing like that on this one. Les Paul Custom. And the truss rod appears to be in good shape. But man, I love this headstock. I wish they would do more with this whole multicolor thing. And to be honest, I'm not sure how they did it. Because typically they're colored binding. It's not actually colored. Like, if you wear off the edge of it, you'll see the white underneath it. They had to have done like a yellow base coat and then masked it off and then did the rest. I mean, it's either that or they actually used yellow binding on this one, which is not what they normally do. So like this one, maybe they shot it yellow, then masked that off, and then just shot these areas red. Because if you get it in the light just right, you can actually kind of see the red finish
in the black areas, like it's got a slightly red tint to it. I think I'm seeing that. Like, again, I didn't build these things. I don't know. It's just normally the Widows, they just get all shot one color and then you just see it. But it's kind of cool seeing this thing up close. That gold hardware really pops the binding color. But we've got those Grover tuners, and touching this headstock is like, no. It feels like something that would get me demonetized if I described what it's like. It's like a body part hanging off that, yeah, it's just no. Moving on to the backside, it's actually a very, very dark navy blue color. Like, you can just barely see that it's blue. All that yellow in the binding really pops it. But here's what our control cavity looks like. You've just got the regular Gibson pots in here. Nothing too fancy on this beast. But you can see through to the maple top on this side. It's all sprayed over in blue, so that looks pretty cool. Toggle switch, regular strap buttons in your normal locations. Output jack on the side. Then we move on to our neck here. Basically, all I have to show you here is our brake. So earlier I was telling you, it's a pretty clean brake. All this really needs is a glue and clamping job, because that closes up for the most part pretty well. Now, unfortunately, we are missing a small sliver of wood that just happens to have the finish on it. There were a few pieces in the case that I saw right away, but that is going to be an obstacle for somebody to overcome. But then look how it broke up here. So it cracked up there, and then I've never seen this before. It actually continued to crack up there. Like, sometimes these headstocks will break from there, but then not go there. I mean, we're just lucky since it broke in so many different ways that it's at least intact enough that I can take a look at it without worrying about it snapping off. Whoever does end up repairing this, a really cool idea. Mask your serial number off, mask your Centipede off, but leave a little bit of a blue border around it, and then have somebody do a red color, just like this, and do it the way this thing should have been done in the first place. Have a big old red stinger that goes here, and then go as far as doing the double stinger on the heel. That would transform this guitar to be even cooler. But you've got these heavy golden Grover tuners on this example. And there's our poor little Centipede guy. Head snapped off. C027 standing for Centipede, and it was the 27th one made. And this is how limited edition guitars become more expensive, because certain members of the family die, and now there's one less out there in collector condition. Now that I've got it opened up a little bit more, you can actually see the wood's like coming away from the veneer in that area too. So it's a pretty nasty looking break, but you know, I'm no luthier, but as far as the ones that I've seen them call easy repairs before, I mean, this is just a quick glue and clamp job, I would guess. You can do some finish touch up. I didn't see any like nicks and dings on this thing, so it must have just been a blunt force trauma. I mean, it wasn't completely detuned when I got it. It had some string pressure on it, but not a lot. It wasn't full tuned. But maybe I could get a demo out of this after all. And whatever tuning that is. We're playing with fire, but it's already broken here, and in order to fix it, usually you actually have to fully break it, because then you know exactly what you're working with, depending on it. There's a lot of factors into this, but a lot of guys will clean up that break area before they go ahead and do the glue and clamp job. Who knows, maybe this will make it to somebody who wants to put splines in it. All I've got to say is, yeah, that's not the normal headstock angle there. And I do not believe that weight at all. 9 pounds, 9 ounces? What? This feels like a 12-pound beast. It must be really body heavy. So there must be like a balance throw off between the neck and the body. That's why sometimes a guitar will feel heavier. But okay, I guess let's very gently get a very small playing demo out of this, because yeah, it's here. We might as well. All right, I don't want to see a single comment talking about the tuning. This is like having a floating Floyd Rose, but in your headstock. So if you tune one string, everything else changes, but I'm playing with fire here. Let's just get some sort of a demo here, starting with our neck position. And on top of that, we can't even tune it full to pitch, so I mean, these strings don't stand a chance.
middle. Bridge position. Tuning aside, it doesn't sound half bad. Like that neck pickup, you can tell it's nice and juicy. And that middle pickup has kind of some nice spank to it as well. All right, let's attempt some distortion here. You could hear all the great tones want to come out of this thing. It's just, I'm too scared to really let loose on this thing, but that bridge pickup. That neck. It's got such a great lead tone to it. The middle position, I really didn't know what to do with that though. Now that we know all about the Centipede, Les Paul, what are my final thoughts on this thing? It's a darn shame that this one had to get broken in shipping. But you know what? At the end of the day, I'm glad I continued on with the review because, I mean, I'm not the best guitar player anyway, so I'm sure there's some comments going, hey, I didn't notice any difference in the playing segment. Sounds like normal. There's other reviews and videos out there that'll show you how this will sound. But, I mean, this kind of gives you a general idea of what a broken headstock guitar sounds like. Now, sure, I probably could have tuned it up a little bit more, but I really did not want to mess with this any more than has already been messed with, because somebody will repair this. Who knows? Ultimate recommendations for this thing? Yeah, it is very cool in person. I like the color scheme anyways, but some guys, they might not. I mean, it is a bit weird. I thought it looked a little bit jarring in photos too, but in person, that yellow binding really
looks good with how dark yellow it is. And then that cool red headstock here. All right, troglodytes, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.